So welcome everyone. Today is an open conversation. There's a mix of government folks and industry folks online, and we're going to be talking about something that I teased a little bit back in December when I was doing an open event in Ottawa. We had about 300 people online, and I started to talk about this concept, this Project Pronghorn concept of how to do agentic application development within a enterprise environment, and by that meaning having specific standards and technologies that we must adhere to. So that's what we're going to talk about today. We'll be speaking a little bit about this from a technical perspective, but also speaking about it organizationally as we take this on. Just a little bit of housekeeping. The session is being recorded. And we may post either all or segments of this up in the future. So I just wanted folks to be aware of that. So if you're here and you're still participating, know that this is being recorded. And as mentioned previously, just use the Q&A function if you will, and we can capture your questions right there in an orderly way. And we had about 500 people register for this session. So it shows that it's a hot topic around the use of AI, especially the use of AI, I think, to take on high quality enterprise products is what we're talking about today. And I will be talking through this Project Pronghorn, which is an MIT licensed open source agentic workflow tool developed by the Government of Alberta. And the purpose of this call is to share openly some of what we've been doing. So there's a lot of interest in this from industry and from staff. So this is a good opportunity to share and engage in a dialogue. It is also more than a tech demo, an invitation to collaborate, to work and play the game differently, as you will. I do think that when we do have the chance to show some of the challenges we have and some of the opportunities in government, many folks get excited and reach out to ask how they can help to participate or contribute or collaborate. And sessions like this are intended to do just that, to provide an avenue for future engagement, provide an avenue for industry and the public and staff alike to see what we're working on, and to share with transparency how we think the business of IT is expected to change as technologies like artificial intelligence evolve. And so we hope that if we're not already working with you in industry, we hope that this is perhaps the start of a positive and productive relationship. And if we are working with you, it's an invitation to continue to work with us and to bring some of these ideas forward in your engagement with us. And I will say that folks, we are going to be talking about some technical things, but as mentioned, this isn't just for developers; it's for the entire kind of end-to-end industry around business transformation all the way to delivery. So the intent is to leverage AI in this human-centric and productive way, and we do that by having conversations like this. We do have representation in the room and on the call from all 5 divisions of technology and innovation, and I know that there are many other folks from our ministries online as well. So welcome, and thank you for taking the time to participate. In terms of today's agenda, we have it broken down into these 5 steps. So I'm going to spend about 45 minutes talking about how we've come to this kind of concept, the background, the exploration we've taken over in the fiscal year that we've had now, which is the 2025-26 fiscal year, what we've discovered, what we've tried, what we're working on, and how this AI factory concept and this Project Pronghorn as a platform have emerged through our exploration. I'm going to spend a little bit of time going through some of the website and documentation and resources, because we put out a wealth of open resources for you to reference to understand what these technologies are doing and how to utilize them. And if luck is in our favor, because it's always risky doing a real-time exploration, but we'll give it a shot, and we'll attempt to do some hands-on tool exploration with Project Pronghorn, to share some videos, to share some live demos, and to talk through how it works as a platform. We'll spend about 15 minutes talking about what's next and where this is evolving, and then hopefully we'll leave at least 15 or maybe 20 minutes for a Q&A session where we can respond to your questions. So if you do have questions as they're coming up, put them in that Q&A function. We'll do our very utmost to speak to as many of them as we can the time, and it will also give us an insight into your perspectives and your thoughts. So even if you don't have a question, but you have an idea or something to contribute, please utilize that. We will commit to reading every single one of your comments, and it will be very helpful for us in the spirit of collaboration if you've got ideas yourself. So I'll start off with some context around some of the challenges that we face in government, and these are by no means unique to Alberta. I think that they are shared by governments around the world struggling with changing technologies, struggling with managing what's called technical debt, which is our older IT systems, software, hardware, and infrastructure that we have to maintain and support. Many of us are struggling with the reduced budgets in the future, so we are looking to always be more cost effective. We're looking to ensure that we're delivering the highest value for money. But there's a lot of literature, and there's been a lot of studies around the fact that many IT projects, especially those happening at scale, fail to deliver the intent. This has been studied by the Government of Canada, by the Auditor General several times, various Auditor Generals. This has been studied by Gartner and McKinsey, and there's some big stats out there that say a majority of digital transformation projects often fail to deliver the intended outcome or to fall within being on time and on budget. So this is something that we all contend with in this industry, is projects will slip over, the scope will be unknown, and we'll talk about some of the root causes about that. And often, despite the time and the attention spent on different IT digital transformation initiatives, they often fail to meet the accessibility, the look and feel, the security, the coding standards that we would look for and that a large enterprise would seek. And so those are some of the challenges. Now, when we reflect on challenges, that doesn't take away from the good work staff are already doing. And I would be remiss if we didn't identify the fact that technology and innovation has a crucial and critical role that we deliver the entire IT backbone for this Government of Alberta. And many of the services that millions of Albertans take advantage of today, including things like alberta.ca, the recent digital wallet, and a range of different services that Albertans make themselves available to all the time. And so it is healthy to reflect on where there's opportunities for growth while not taking away from the good work that staff are doing. So I do want to acknowledge that our team does a tremendous amount of work that I'm extremely proud of. And that the team should be extremely proud of, but it is always an organization's accountability and responsibility to look where we can always enhance and we can always do better. And to the degree that we can help our other partner governments in Canada, our provinces, territories, and our partners in the federal government to also explore some of these things and develop these solutions, I think we have a responsibility to do that with our partners as well as with municipalities and other public bodies. So those are some of the challenges that we do face and that we are looking to continually enhance our processes and continually work to resolve. Now, the other thing, with the reduced budget, I will say that one of the things that, since I've been in this role as Deputy Minister for the last year and a half approximately, I will say that the demand is increasing very quickly. So we have, I think Albertans are demanding modern, fast, usable, safe, secure, and privacy-enhancing technologies. And I think more and more the demand on our services is starting to scale up as well. We're also facing the fact that in this age of artificial intelligence and high-performance computing and things like quantum computing in the future, we're also addressing the fact that we have an accountability within TI to protect and safeguard the privacy and the security and the integrity of our systems as well. And we do that in an ever increasingly hostile cyber environment. And so our CISO, Martin Denel, I believe, is online, and he can tell you about the tens of millions of attempts against our infrastructure that we successfully thwart every week, month, and year. And so We do need to scale our capabilities, though, to keep up, because those cyber risks are increasing and will continue to increase as computing and AI become more powerful. So that's a bit of the government context. Now, when we look at the challenges of putting out high quality enterprise grade services and tools, we started to look earlier in this year, and I've spoken in multiple different forums about our AI maximalist program. So just about a year ago, we did a call out to staff, and we had about 10% of staff volunteer to sign up to become part of our AI maximalist program. And the intent of that program was to identify and really stress test the potential of artificial intelligence. There's a lot that comes to us in glossy brochures and market research and LinkedIn posts. It's difficult to identify truth from fiction. And I will say, over the last year, we've explored a number of these different platforms like Lovable and Cursor and Replit and Cloud Code to separate what's truth from fiction. And what we've found is that in 2025, AI went through a major transformation, and it became capable and powerful at a speed that I think surprised many people. And I was very pleased that we were at the leading edge of testing these tools and evaluating them, so we could stay up to date with what was happening. But what also became clear for us is that in order for these tools to be applicable in a government context where security and look and feel and privacy are fundamental and absolutely necessary, we needed to work with AI in a way that was maybe a little bit different than the way private industry was working with them. And what we needed to do is really ground these tools in the context of where we work in government. And so using a tool, and I'm just going to pick Lovable as an example. It's a tool I'm very familiar with, and I've messaged about publicly about using and appreciating as in terms of potential, but by no means sort of singling them out. Looking at a tool like that, they're extremely powerful, but because they lack the context of our cybersecurity standards, and they lack our templates and our technology stack and our reference material and our knowledge of our infrastructure and our different technical controls and domains, they're unable to be as effective as they could be in a different context. And so, lacking that context, we struggled to get the kind of enterprise quality value out of it. What they did demonstrate to us, though, is that the capability of the foundational models underpinning them, paired with correct tooling and structured well, it is possible, though, to do that. And so it opened the door to saying it would be possible for the Government of Alberta to have our cake and eat it too, to use the metaphor, which is we can have the potential and power of AI with the privacy protection, with the adherence to standards, with the safeguarding of data and infrastructure needed to work in a government context, if we provided the necessary materials to actually power that system. And I'll share an interesting anecdote. This was shared to me recently by my counterpart from our counterpart ministry in Quebec. And they recently did an evaluation of Copilot. They rolled out Copilot to their business users. So think non-technical frontline business users who are looking to do day-to-day program delivery activities, policy development, government operations, finance. And what they found was that in that domain, using a tool like Copilot, they found that there was a 10% measurable productivity gain, which is, it's not nothing, but it didn't materialize really in the processes of government moving faster. However, when they gave a similar tool set, which was GitHub Copilot, to their more technical, actually found that there was an 89% productivity gain that did have a measurable impact and actually resulted in delivering higher quality products faster. And what was interesting about that is, even though it's the same fundamental AI models underneath, the tooling and the mode of working is different. And so when we're looking at what's possible, what we're really seeing in this really great use case is if you change fundamentally, if you leave the AI model the same, the underlying model is the same, and you change the tooling and how people work, you get that 9 to 10 times productivity boost coming out of it. And that's really quite profound. And it was a clue for us to say that there's a need to rethink service delivery. And if we gave the critical roles and the functions the right tools along the path, we could start to unlock greater opportunity to address our technical debt, increase the security of our tools, get services out to Albertans faster. And so I thought that this was a really great study, and it was certainly helpful for us to understand that how impactful the tools were on top of these AI models to change and enhance our product. And so, like I sort of alluded to, there were 4 kind of key challenges with the current scope of AI tools in the marketplace today. One was the technology mismatch. So a lot of tools are, they're using some common technology stacks like React. They're using, Dino, which is a kind of a Node equivalent backend. They're using Supabase and Postgres. But in many instances, you actually couldn't change how they work. They only work with whatever they work with. And we understand why that is. We understand, and we're going to talk a little bit about why AI needs to have some clearly defined guardrails in order to produce quality. But the technology mismatch was somewhat significant, in which, if we had a Java application or a .NET application using a SQL database or an Oracle database, we couldn't as easily go to one of these platforms and use them because the tech didn't align. So we needed the variability to meet us in our technical domain. The second was a lack of control. So while these tools were incredibly powerful, in many instances, we couldn't extract our data out or understand what was going on inside them. They were somewhat a black box. And again, for market competitive reasons, I understand that. But when you go to use even a chat tool and they don't let you download your transcript, and you go to use an AI tool and they don't let you download the logs, and they don't let you understand what the prompts are inside of those tools, it's difficult for us to have the confidence that we are using tools that are well aligned to what we need. So we had no insight in the tooling, the prompts, or the context given to these agentic systems. So that was the second challenge. The third was inconsistency. So you could go to one of these tools and, it's quite exciting. And I think on the slide here, it says addictive, where you could go and you could have a great business idea. You could go to use some of these cloud-based tools, and it would produce you something that was somewhat brilliant. It would look great. And then if you asked it to do the same thing again, it would come up and be a completely different product. It would look different. It would function different. It would be structured different. It would have different, login and security. And so that's challenging because we couldn't get the kind of consistency that a government absolutely needs from, all the way from look and feel all the way down through our cybersecurity and our infrastructure. We need consistency because people need to understand that, that when they come and interact with the government, you're interacting with one organization. You're not interacting with 1,000 different pages that look differently and that I can't trust because I actually can't tell if this is a legitimate government site because it looks completely different from the other page. And then the fourth was really around alignments. And when I talk about alignments, again, we have, as much as we need functionality, we need security and privacy. And so these tools seem to be really tuned towards front-end experiences, user interfaces, apps that were, again, great to look at, but misaligned to the kind of the fundamental underpinnings of what we're looking for, which is AI helping us end-to-end holistically in the process and not just sort of in a component to it. So those are the 4 major pain points. So if you're from industry and you're thinking about how to get your product into government, those are some of the the pieces of feedback. And if you're from government, these are some of the things that we're contending with as we look at AI and try to get products. I did speak about what the reasons government fail. So there's good research. This is from PMI around why an IT project would fail. And so if you look quickly at the 5 unclear or constantly changing requirements, number 1 killer. poor communication or misalignment, lack of executive support, scope creep, and inadequate testing. And interestingly, none of these say the code was too tough. None of them say we just didn't know how to code it. Those aren't the things that kill projects. We've got great coders, we've got great technical resources in the Government of Alberta, but still these 5 things are challenging. So the reason I'm sharing this is when we started to think about end-to-end process, even if you've got an agentic coding tool, if you don't take it into account, how do we apply agentic tools to business requirements? How do we apply agentic tools to communication? How do we apply those to executive support and timelines and scope creep and things like that? There was an opportunity to more holistically bring AI to the forefront to serve and address multiple different parts of that. And so that was high in our list of criteria around what we needed to move forward. And so the coming with all of these as pressures, if you will, all these as drivers, we started to move towards something that we called Project Pronghorn. And so if you're not familiar with the pronghorn, it's a kind of antelope. It's a unique species. It doesn't have a close cousin. It's an animal that is abundant in the prairies and in Alberta. And but it became a really good emblem or mascot or whatever for what we were trying to do. Kind of a good analogy for how we wanted to transform enterprise. So some things that you may or may not know about a pronghorn: it's the fastest land animal in North America, second fastest in the world. So there's an element of speed. What's different about it is they can maintain that speed. So unlike a cheetah, where they get off the blocks, where you get something quickly, they're engineered to sustain that velocity through that. And so we took that concept. They have got these amazing eyes, these 300-degree vision, right? So they have an amazing sense of peripheral vision. So that idea of being aware, able to spot threats. They're quite agile, so that they can navigate complex terrain at speed. And they're distinct heritage. And if you weren't aware, they are right there on our crest as well. So it's the pronghorn and the lion there supporting the crown there on our official crest. So it seemed like a reasonably good mascot, and the principles of it seemed well aligned with what we were trying to achieve. I'll leave this presentation somewhere public so you can look at it, and there's some elements there, a lot of which I've talked about, and which we'll talk about. We'll go through the detail on the slide there. So when we start to look at how we want to be able to innovate, we're looking at the delivery of this in 3 different pieces. So if we think about quality, and if we think about speed, and if we think about reliability, adherence to regulation, a beautiful product, a good analogy for that would be an automobile assembly line. So there's different types of cars, there's hundreds of different models of cars and manufacturers, but ultimately we need those cars to be high quality. We need them to be safe. We need them to meet all of the regulatory requirements. And so when we started to think about how do we do this, how do we take on AI and modernize how we start to look at end-to-end across technology and innovation, how we deliver an IT product, there was a lot of inspiration in the concept of an assembly line, this AI factory. But we knew we couldn't, we know we can't start off trying to build everything for everyone. So there's a famous quote by Henry Ford that says, any color the customer wants as long as it's black. And so the sense was that when you start this concept of building out a factory, what you're really driving for is, can I produce one high quality product with a high degree of reliability, a high degree of consistency? And when I get that, so that I can get, one car rolling off the assembly line every 5 minutes or 5 hours, whatever that metric is, I can then start to look at multiple different lines. And so we're taking that approach here around our use of AI. And so we've come up with this factory concept where, we're splitting the factory into thirds. And each part of the factory has to work, because if there's a slowdown anywhere in the factory, the whole thing doesn't deliver, right? If you can't, do quality assurance, or if you can't pick the parts off the shelf, whatever limiting factor there becomes basically your lowest common denominator. Any blocker becomes the blocker for the entire process. we really see that there's a mode for AI working in the first third, which is around design and standards. The second third, which is around this kind of agentic coding, the assembly line, and then the final third, which is around the auditability, the quality, the security, and ensuring that we have those privacy enhancing steps that we're putting end to end. And so Pronghorn is looking to sort of take on the entire end-to-end process. And there's really 10 teams. I think this adds up to 10. I didn't count it. 10 teams where if we can orchestrate these folks working together, all feeding into this consistent set of tools and this factory mindset, they all become critical parts of the factory. So intake, what are we trying to accomplish? What are our ministry colleagues looking for? What is the public looking for? Standards. How do we produce a high quality product? What does it mean to produce something that is fit for purpose, that has a good common look and feel, it's accessible, it works on all devices, it's cyber safe, it's privacy protecting? What do those standards look like? Templates. Think about that in the factory as the parts that you're taking off the shelf. Well, those templates, AI is really good at pulling pieces off of a shelf and plugging them together. It is less good at inventing a full end-to-end enterprise app. So templates become important. Cybersecurity has to be built in at the very get-go. It's not a gate through which you pass to get your AI-based app into production. It is sitting there designing the assembly line, making sure that whatever comes off the assembly line is already cyber safe right from its inception. You've got project management, looking at project timelines, resources, stakeholder communications, making sure that we have the right information at the right time, feeding this process. Business analysis, transforming those intakes into clear and actionable technical requirements. Of course, you've got development, because even though AI is now emerging, capable of doing a large amount of technical development, it still requires a range of different technical expertise in the dev space. Testing in QA is absolutely key. We talk about this all the time. How do you know when an app is good? Well, you have to have a metric that you measure it by. So just like going through the 500-point inspection for your car coming off the assembly line, we have to be approaching things that way. Infrastructure, those are the roads that your car is driving on, if you will, to belabor the analogy. That's how we're putting these applications out, making sure that they're protected, they're in our cloud domain, or they're on-premise, they're protected with private endpoints and VPNs, et cetera. And then the integration of AI end-to-end, which is the AI operation. So if you look at these teams, it's actually the teams that form the end-to-end assembly line. And so that's the concept going into it. And we have to move away from traditional. We've been conditioned over the last decades to work with technology. I'm going to sit down and have a meeting with you, and I take my notes on a pen and paper, and then I put them in a Word document, and I attach it to an email. I've just broken the process 3 times, because now I have a pencil and paper. Now I'm putting it in a Word document into a SharePoint, and now I'm sending you an email. And each of those different pieces has different information, and none of it is accessible to your team. None of it's accessible to artificial intelligence. None of it is actually informing a process. So we have to break some of the ways that we're conditioned to work, get out of PowerPoint, Word, email, and embrace really working where AI is not just a copy-paste tool, but it's essentially the conveyor belt, if you will, between my work at one point in the factory and Sean's work at the next point, and Hillary and Richard, all the way down that table, all the way down the conveyor belt. We should be working in a way where agentic AI is helping us be that glue, helping us be that consistency that drives us. So it's really, when we talk about this concept of an AI factory, what we're really talking about is humans working together in a smart, collaborative, constructive way where AI becomes an enabling force that is helping us work together better. And that's a big part of what we try to remind people about, is that if you take the mindset that AI is there to replace, that's the wrong mindset. AI is there to streamline so that we can all work together a little bit better. So there's another diagram you can look at your leisure. Really, it's that 3-stage factory concept there. So the first third is we have to build these solid templates that we can understand. Basically, I call them enterprise grade hello world. It's the chassis of your application. If you have, if we're producing a product, there's only so many variations of app out there, right? It's an ERP, it's a form, it's a dashboard, it's some sort of case tool, right? There's only so many variations. So if we create the highest quality templates as a starting point and feed that into this factory, that's like pulling off really high quality parts out of your warehouse and bringing them into the assembly line. If your, if your steering wheel doesn't work, or if your flasher signal or your windshield wipers don't work, and you bolt them onto the car is not going to work. It's just, and the factory is not where you figure that out. So these templates form the foundation, common design patterns, regulatory requirements, architectures, and tech stacks. That's what's missing from making most of the AI tools that we use today from being what we need them to be, right? That's why I can't go to many of these different products and platforms, because they simply don't have these elements worked out. They have a version of them that's meeting their primary customer base, which is good, but it's not, it stops these tools from scaling inside of enterprise. And so there's those teams that you saw in the previous slide, there's a big fixation to say quality AI delivered capabilities come when you land these 5 things at the first third of your factory before you've ever started billing. If you don't land this, you will struggle to get any value out of AI in an enterprise domain. And when we talk about, I'll spend just a moment on standards. Like we are, it's kind of funny. Government's really good at standards. We have a lot of them, but translating them into a way that is actionable is quite difficult, right? So we've got standards in PDFs and on our website and SharePoint, and we've got it in Jira, we've got it in PowerPoint. The work to translate them is to synthesize this information together in a way that we, as delivery and AI, can jointly understand them. It's a new format. That's new for us. That, in essence, it's like converting it's like building a schematic. Right? So a schematic is a set of standards in a visual language. Well, that's exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to build these tools. We're trying to build our standards now in a way that we can put into a repository, like a code repository, and AI can read it natively. It doesn't have to parse a PDF and a PowerPoint and search in SharePoint. It simply reaches into the standards and it brings them forward. And these are some of the things that we look for in government. There's more to this. There's cybersecurity standards and infrastructure, but this is just a bit of a reference. And then there's this concept of a build book. And the build book is really, you bring it all together as a package, right? So if I say to AI, hey, we're going to build a .NET application, it should be able to pull in every standard library, every standard, coding standard, cloud standard, tool standard, and bring it all together as the starting point. So this is the missing piece of context that stops most agentic AI tools from being as useful and functional as we would like them to be within the government. So if you can start off with a build book around bringing all this stuff together, AI is going to have a tremendously higher return on investment. Now we'll move into the middle third of the factory. So this is where we get into the AI operations. This is where we start to unlock it. Not all models are created equally. So there's a lot of foundational models out there. There's open source models. There's different providers. There's the big ones you know about. There's the OpenAI, the Anthropic, and the Google. There's the mid-sized ones. There's the Cohere and the Mistral and the DeepSeek even. And then there's the open source ones where it's the Gemma and the Kimi and those other models. They're all just like people. They're all kind of different at what they're able to do. They're differently able around what they're able to take on. And we need to learn that. What you do with a mid-level model versus what you do with a high-performing model, the outcome from this factory is different. So it's kind of like a clunky robot that can move in one axis versus a sophisticated robot arm that can move in every axis, right? Like that's a bit about the difference. And so we need to know that. We need to be able to pick from those different models. We need full auditability. We need to know what your model was thinking, what your model did, what your model assessed, or what your agent, I should say, was thinking at the beginning, and where the issues emerged, where the bugs happened. We have to see it. A factory is fundamentally an intelligence operation, right? If something fails, you need enough intelligence to be able to fix that failure from happening again. So it's continual enhancement. So that auditability, not only is it helpful for us to produce better and better products, it's also necessary for us to be fully accountable for the kinds of products we deliver. And I'll give you an example. If you were a mid-manager, a director, an executive director, or an ADM, or a deputy, and someone said, I want you to be fully accountable for what the AI did. How could you be fully accountable for something if you didn't have the ability to go in and check on it and to have it pass tests? And AI becomes a difficult proposition to say, okay, if I'm the director of application development, you've asked me to take on AI, and it's a black box that sometimes produces wonder and delight, and sometimes produces massively vulnerable applications, and I don't know when that sometimes is. I feel exceedingly uncomfortable with being on the hook for that. And so auditability becomes how we validate and vet these tools to say that when there is a failure, it's easy to detect, we understand what's happening, and we know how to mitigate it next time. And so there is no factory assembly line that starts on day one and is flawless. But they refine and they enhance and they look where quality breaks down and they refactor and they retool and they add new and more capabilities. And that's the same mindset we need. But without that auditability, without that transparency, and without, the last point really shows it, no black boxes, full visibility is a difficult value proposition for all of us to take on. Fundamental to this, we end up with a bunch of different agents performing different functions. So imagine, a graphic probably would have been helpful at this point, but imagine you have a conveyor belt with all these robotic arms coming into it. You're going to have different agents doing different things at different points. And so, I'm just calling out this one, but inside the tool that I'm going to show you, we have this coding agent orchestrator. And what we're doing with these is, and I'll take maybe a minute or two and describe what we mean by an agent. So if you're using a generative AI model, a large language model, or a multimodal model, they are stateless, meaning that when you interact with them, they will perform a function, send you back a result, and they will completely forget what you told them a second ago. So in order to make these agents useful, to understand what they're working on and to have consistency and flow, you need to give them memory. You need to help them understand, hey, you are an agent. You're now attempting to do this task. This task has 5 steps. You're currently on step number 1. Step number 1 is task A, B, and C. Task A and B worked, task C failed. Your job is to understand why task C failed. And you need to prompt them that way every single time, because they continually forget from 1 second to the next. They continually forget who you are, what you're working on, why. And so having memory baked into these tools is absolutely crucial to get quality results. The second thing is they need agency to be an agent. You're not an agent unless you have some ability to do. And so that is tooling. You have to give them a set of different tools that they can look at and say, I know how to execute this tool, and to call that tool to get a piece of information or to perform an action and then validate it. Don't forget, as much as we struggle with AI for being a black box, the world is a black box to them. They're simply acting on the prompt you give it at that moment. And so it's so memory, agency, and then what you need to wrap around them is the ability for their agency to actually, so they can call a tool, but then you need to give them, you actually need to execute. You have to do what it says. So if it says, I want to delete that file, you have to give the ability to delete that file. If it says, I want to open that database and read what's in it, you have to give it the ability to do that. So that's the tooling. That's kind of the other part of that tooling. And so each agent is going to have some variation of that to make this factory work again. So some of the things that they need to be able to do, they need to be able to reach in and pull reusable code in. They need to pull templates. They need to be able to iterate and change. They need to read history. They need to be able to have the ability to do exactly what a human would do, which is read a file, edit a file, delete a file, modify it, stage a change, roll back, all of the things that a technical person in a technical role would do. They need to be able to understand their context. So what are their requirements, the artifacts, the architecture, et cetera. They need to know all of these elements. And that the traceability needs to be there for you, but it also needs to be there for them because they have to understand where this fails. And so this is how you construct an agent inside your factory. Once you set one of these agents up, then they become like a little autonomous robot inside your factory. I spoke a little bit about the traceability. I won't actually spend too much time on the slide, but there's also traceability in outcome, right? So a client has asked for 100 different business requirements over here. You have 500 pieces of code over here, 500 files. Do you meet the requirements? And so AI actually needs to be able to understand how close are we and how much work there is to do. And if not AI, then you understand the requirements traceability is key. We'll talk a little bit about this, but it's not just fire and forget, to use that analogy. It is a partnership. So when you're working with these tools, you need to be able to synchronize how you work as a person with how they work. And this idea of synchronization is also really key, because if you're just copying and pasting back and forth, which is sort of how we were all conditioned to use AI when ChatGPT came out and some of these tools, you're missing the interplay, you're missing the relationship you can form. And so a big part of what we need is synchronization between how people work and people work. So in this example, I'm saying that you have this coding agent inside the factory. Well, it's actually syncing to your personal PC, your work PC, and you can both edit and influence and work together in a collaborative different way. So real-time integration becomes key. And then deployment. So we're getting into sort of the third part of the factory, which is being able to actually say, okay, I've built a thing. I'm going to deploy it, and I'm going to go start to test it. So you need the ability for you and the AI to be able to deploy out onto infrastructure and to know what broke. I hate to say it, but human devs find that there are bugs in code, and you find that by putting it in a test environment, and you find it by having people explore it. And I'd like to say that we ever achieved a point of perfection amongst humans or AI where testing it in the wild was not a critical part, but it still is. So how do you know your app is good? Well, first of all, you measure it against requirements, but you put it out in a way that you can break it. And so you and the AI need to be able to say, oh, I'm going to deploy that, and I'm going to run it, and I'm going to see what happens, and I'm going to click a whole bunch of buttons and run a bunch of test scripts, and I'm going to know and detect that. I'm going to factor it back in. So if your AI doesn't have the ability to do that, then you've sort of missed an opportunity to actually know if you're producing good quality stuff. So for the demo, you'll see a demo using render.com as a public cloud provider. There's no reason that this isn't AWS or GCP or Azure or Oracle or any other cloud provider. The deployment is the trivial part. The challenge is you got to sync them up together. AI needs to look at that system and say, is it running, is it working, etc. So that's another key. And then the final third. Don't let the car go out if it's going to go and the wheels are going to fall off and it's going to go hurt somebody. Don't let that car out of the factory if there's a component missing. The door is not there. So no one gets hurt, but it just is not very comfortable to drive in an Edmonton winter, and so forth. So you need to know whether you've achieved quality, and you do that using fit gap analysis. AI is incredibly good at this. You can take your requirements here, you can take your code base there, and you can say, find me the gaps. And with relentlessness and persistence, it's getting really, really good at doing that. So that's a part of it. We've left the coding behind for a second. Now what we're looking at is challenging the quality of the product that we're getting out. And so that's another thing that in the final third of the factory, AI comes out. And again, because privacy and security and integrity of our data and our systems is so important, when you are bringing this product off the assembly line, are you looking at just the product in front of you, or are you looking at the full inventory of everything that happened? Oh, hey, the product looks great, but I'm seeing on the inventory that there's still 5 bolts weren't installed in a door. We don't know what door, but if you don't know that that missed, then you're probably not going to, if you do know that there's a gap there, you're not going to let that thing drive off the assembly line until you figure out what happened. You're going to fix it at the product level, but you're fundamentally going to fix it at the assembly line level. And you're going to make sure that next time the 5 bolts are never missing out of that, 5 mystery bolts are never missing. You're going to look for gaps and issues, security vulnerabilities, compliance, design flaws. We're going to, and again, cyber needs to bring their own agent, right? We're talking red team, blue team here. You're not saying that don't trust me that this is good. This is a zero trust environment. That's what we're trying to build. So we need to red team everything that's coming off the line here, again, to have confidence in what we're delivering. And that can be for what people are delivering. That can be what for AI is delivering, or obviously it's a hybrid of both. So again, in that cyberspace, and then tailored reporting. Every single, whether you're the project manager, the project executive, the cybersecurity team, the infra team, the change team, you all need to know your own lens on what's coming off. These are all areas that AI can start to bring it to a single. Some of the other things that you'll see as we get into the demo side, we humans need tooling as well. So Excel, PDF, image recognition, OCR, image generation, nano banana, UIs, flowcharts, collaboration, data management. These are all things that we need. And so they're in some way baked into the tool today. But we're at an alpha stage. These are going to change and evolve and grow, but we need tools for humans as well. So what we were seeking, and what we'll get into in the demo, is we wanted to replace more than a dozen standard tools to say that I could actually sit down and do an end-to-end process evolution here. And actually stop context switching between being in Jira 1 minute, being in DevOps or GitHub in another minute, being in VS Code and Cloud Code in the command line, going into my cloud portal, going into here. It's too complex. It's too diversified. Factory's got to flow, right? So you bring it all into one giant building, if you will. We have to replace the somewhat jagged edges of what we're working on into something that flows seamlessly. And so, when we looked at Pronghorn, what we're trying to do is replace more than a dozen different tools that we're currently using, and so that anyone could step in and understand where is that product on the assembly line right now, and ask the questions that they needed to know. The other thing came down to collaboration, and this is kind of interesting. It came to how we can work together. And so the tool set up to date, this is by no means specific to the factory, but we have to start designing for AI collaboration in mind. So if we have username, password, single sign-on, those are great. Single sign-on has made getting into an application securely and validating who you are, has made that great, multi-factor authentication. But we also need to know that we have to design for the future where AI needs to be part of what's operating these tools. So if for Pronghorn, we took a token-based approach so that you can actually create different roles, an owner role, an editor, or a viewer. And you could give it to AI and say, okay, with this viewer role, you can actually sync up to a Pronghorn project, and you can just look at it, monitor it in real time, everything that's going on as a viewer. You can plug, as an AI, you can plug in and just tell me what's going on in that project. And you don't actually have to be in the tool at all. You can be completely outside of the tool because you have an access token. Now, there's different ways to deploy this. We're actually taking this and deploying it behind the fence for us inside the GOA. So you have to think about your security protocol. For us, again, we're going to be applying a defense in depth. But the concept that I'm bringing to you is, with this token-based approach, we're getting ready that the operator of the tool may not be a human in the future. And so if you can provide these secure tokens and give them different roles, we're actually getting ready that AI will be operating these tools for us. That was the concept there. And we also wanted to integrate into other agentic systems. So it would take me 4 hours to tell you all about the Agent Builder console, but we have, again, powerful workflow tools that we're using, as well as Free Agent, which is an autonomous agent that you can go on and direct. And we've integrated that into Pronghorn. So you can go to our Agent Builder console tool, have it do a tremendous amount of work, and then publish it straight into your Pronghorn project automatically. So what that means is you're not constrained by one single platform or an agent or whatever. You go off and build your own agents, and there's what's called a webhook, which is an API that will receive your credentials, receive your data, and put it right into your project. That means you can go off and use literally any tool. You can do an API call and bring it into your factory loading dock. You can have multiple different suppliers. So the integration piece is also what we're looking at, and we'll scale integrations out in the future. You have database integrations. You could have SharePoint, Google Docs, you name it, Shopify, whatever you wanted to have integrated into there. You can have those pushes right into your factory as well. So that's a little bit of how we were dealing. So I'm almost at the end of the slideware. I won't talk about this one. I already talked about the multiple teams working together. I do want to spend the last couple of minutes on this slide and maybe one other, and that is there's multiple pathways here for success. So we've been talking about taking requirements and getting out to code into production. But I did mention the fact that you can take code and work it all the way back to requirements. You can take code and work it into new a transformation. You can take an Excel sheet and build a data service, a dashboard. You can basically walk through the factory in a number of different ways. So legacy system modernization, automated documentation. What is this app? What does it do? Application integration points. So how do we integrate database migration, enterprise dashboard, and project proposals are all possible once you have this team of different agents, and they all drive to a different outcome. Ultimately, we want digital solutions in the hands of Albertans that are value add, right? So they'll all lead that way. But sometimes I need to take a legacy app and I need to say, how do I put this into ServiceNow? How do I put this into Dynamics? I'm not going to own the code in the future. I am going to go onto a common platform. Well, we need to support those use cases. So those are some of the targets. Again, we're trying to really, I'm being somewhat illustrative here, and in terms of the time difference, but the key things are we don't want to start from scratch. We need these reusable parts. We need pre-solves and security by design, DevSecOps at the very beginning. We need a template-based approach, and we need auditability transformation, and we need full line of sight around whether we've achieved that. Those are our table stakes in terms of what we're looking at. I'll go back to our big 5 reasons that they failed. So unclear requirements, great. We're going to map in requirements and put them into the tools. That becomes one of the features. Poor communication, real-time collaboration, shared artifacts, single click. You can get an executive briefing. That's the intent. Lack of executive buy-in, right? So fast wins, build momentum, give very clear briefings of scope and context. Managing scope creep. So, are we overbuilding to the specification? Are we underbuilding to the specification? So that's fundamental. And then inadequate testing, right? So we can ship product. Don't worry about that. But is it good? Did it meet the requirements? Is it safe? Well, that is what we need to be able to validate. So those are the ways that we're taking on the big 5 reasons for failure. And what I will say, I'm going to show you Pronghorn in the second hour, and we're going to walk through some simple use cases and scenarios and collaborate together. But this is a blueprint for working. This is if we sit on this tool in its current state, it'll probably be old news in 3 months, 6 months, right? The speed at which things are evolving. But fundamentally, the process of what we're talking about, of context-driven AI interaction, AI as an extension of human agency, AI helping us fill in some of those critical gaps of monitoring and understanding legacy code and transforming it, those won't change, at least not for the, not for this iteration of where we're at with AI and with technology. Those will stay the same. So the tools will continue to evolve, even though, but the fundamentals, I think, are here to stay for a good period of time. So, message to software vendors. This is, as I mentioned, an invitation to collaborate. Why do we put our stuff out? Why have a public domain? Why put our licenses out? We want you to take what we're doing and make it better. We need your domain expertise. We need your integrations. We need your scale. We need to take this on. We need your help to build it. We want accelerators, custom agents, enterprise extension. So what we're looking for here is a way together to deliver faster, more secure solutions for the government. We don't want to reinvent the wheel every single time. Their invitation is, I'm sure alpha version is full of bugs. I'm sure the agents can be enhanced. I'm sure that there is, some ways that you're already thinking of enhancing it. I know because some vendors have reached out to me and said, cool idea. We're building another version of this. Would you be open to see it? So do it, fork the code, enhance it, sell services around it. But fundamentally, we have to change the way we're working. And my ask to all of you, if you're coming from industry, is please, we're seeking for you to push the envelope here in our service contracts and in the products. I'll be a little bit cute and say, you must be at least this cool to get on the ride with us, right? So if we're able to put these things out, build out teams of agents and things like that, we're looking for you to meet us there. And we'll work openly and transparently for you to do that. But you have to meet us there because the products from 5 years ago, from 10 years ago, they'll cease to be relevant, not just for Alberta, but for others as these new capabilities come online. And then sort of the message to staff is we're excited to transform how we're delivering. We see this as an example of how we can change the way we produce high quality, vendor delightful products. But fundamentally, you have to, as you engage with these tools, understand it doesn't replace people, it amplifies people. Roles are going to change. We talked about those 10 critical teams there. The work in those teams will change, but the function of those teams, the value of those teams doesn't change. So the onus is on us as public servants to be on the leading edge, to experiment, contribute, to embody the change, and to engage here. So whether you're on the technical side or the business side, it's you who actually make this successful. And so I think we have a responsibility on behalf of Albertans, the public that we serve, to ensure that we are on the leading edge of this. We are knowing we are leveraging the possibility safely and at the same time protecting against the misuse of and some of the challenges that we have in the cyberspace where bad actors are already starting to use these tools to great effect. And so we can't sit this one out. There is no version of this where we don't have to be experienced, but we're here to support each other, and I really look for you to come along on the ride with that. So again, the code, we're going to talk about that, the code base, we're going to talk about scale and innovation, but that's really what we're trying to work on. So I'm going to pause and take a sip of water for a moment, and then we're going to change gears here and actually start to walk through some of the technical bits. I didn't do a roundtable early on. But I'll open it up to my team. Any comments or thoughts before we shift? I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you were burning to say something, I'll give you
Live demos are exciting.
Yes, exciting for everyone. Yeah, live demos are exciting. Okay. Larry? No, good. Okay, so I'm gonna shift. Hopefully you can still see my screen in a moment. Project Pronghorn. Let's go to projectpronghorn.com. And I'm going to walk through here. Oh, some thumbs and some claps. So thank you. So I'm going to walk through this. This site is live. It walks through what is Pronghorn. So I've been spending some time talking about the concepts here, talking about the principles. So what is it technically? Well, let's get into that. So if you go to projectpronghorn.com, it is a platform, so it's a live platform. You can get the code right there on GitHub, top right corner, so go and get the code yourself. There's a few components to it that I'll talk about, but basically it's a whole bunch of functions. So those are the tools I talked about. There's more than 30 agents built into it already. Everything you need to build better software. So there's agentic collaboration. So you have specialized agents built in automatically that you can tailor and adjust. There's a visual architecture canvas. This is great. You can finally draw a picture of your app and AI can understand exactly what you mean. It's not a screenshot or a Miro board or a Visio. It's a natively readable digital architecture canvas. You've got these multi-agent teams. You can use Anthropic, Google, XAI, and more different types of models. You can basically bring in any model provider you want. Template-driven development. Again, we're We're going to be rolling out more templates. We've got one that's live. It's kind of alpha as well, but we'll have more templates coming out. You got this really pretty robust autonomous coding agent, and that is similar to Lovable or Claude Code or some of these other platforms. What's cool about it is you have absolute control over everything it does. And so you can go in and configure and tailor that model or that agent to do exactly what you want. You can drive it right off the road if you want, or you can refine it and enhance it, but there's no black box there. We've got some really cool stuff under the hood with Postgres. So you can do single-click Postgres deployment. You can put your AI right into your database immediately and start reading your tables and your code and your schemas or writing them. We've got that token-based collaboration, and then we have the what we call runner, which is the ability to mirror what's happening in the cloud on your local PC. So that means that if you change something in the cloud, it updates locally. If you change something locally, it updates in the cloud. So you can actually bring in GitHub Copilot, Claude Code, Cursor, and actually integrate those into Pronghorn as well. So that means if you already have a favorite way of working, this adds to it, doesn't replace it. There's a couple of videos here that are explainer videos that took some of the technical and project information and turned it into some cartoony but helpful material. So you go ahead and watch both of those as well. I'm not gonna drag you through that. There's memory baked in, and then there's some documentation. So the documentation is somewhat up to date because it was up to date yesterday, but things change on a daily basis. So we'll try to keep it up to date. But come in here and you can really see how things work under the hood. Everything I've talked about, the dashboards, the standards, the build books, the web hooks, and all of the application features are all right here. You can click on any different one of these elements and you can understand exactly what's the technical basis of what's happening under the hood. And so you can see all of the different libraries and tools it's using. So it's really helpful for you if you're thinking about, what does it take to get AI agents working? What does it take to get some of the stuff? And you're looking around in here. It's helpful to understand what's under the hood. It also means you can just clone the code, and if you like something that you saw, you can turn it into your own product as well. So it's a great way to understand, how does the canvas work, right? Okay, so what are the nodes? What are the hierarchies? How does the build agent work, right? So it's all laid out in as plain language as possible, and this will stay somewhat active. So that's probably your best way to explore through it at the point. There's a little bit of, if you want, you can go on GitHub and report a bug. You can go on and post some stuff, and then you can also contact. There's a dedicated Pronghorn Government of Alberta email address. So if you're curious, if you want to talk to the team or have a deeper dive with the AI team, you can hit contact support there. So projectpronghorn.com is the landing site, and I'll pivot now and go into the actual app itself. So here we go on the project exploration. So a very kind of similar website, but now this is the actual app itself. I will say that we tried to make it as user-friendly as possible. So if you log in, there's single sign-on, whether you're government or not, you can go on and access this. You can also play around with it without an account. So you can actually go on and create a project here. This is all just test stuff, but you can go on and create a project and not have an account. It'll get cleaned up after about 7 days. So if you don't anchor it and save your stuff, but you can start to play around with it a little bit already. And let's walk through and let's do something fun here. We'll see if I can create a new project. And I had one in mind. We've had one of the things that we do is we take videos when we're doing a client intake. We'll do a screen cap, we'll do a recording, and there's really great stuff on there, right? They'll show us a screen or a workflow. So we wanted AI to be able to help us in that space, and so I'm going to just create a frictional tool here. I'm just going to touch on a couple of the different features of it. There's hours and hours of capabilities under the hood here, but I'll do something really quick. I'll try to bring us in a copy paste project here. So I have a really simple description. We'll start off with something simple. Create a new project. Call it Enterprise Video Analysis Tool. When I create a project, I can give it some details, what I think the budget, scope, timeline, the start, stop. I can also pick my standards. So this is something that is we're still building out. This is somewhat placeholder data. But if you wanted to come in and pick what are your cyber standards, your accessibility standards, all that stuff, you can attach them to your project right away. So not everything has the same standards. An external public-facing app for us would have different standards than an internal enterprise app, and that's reasonable. I think that versus a mobile application versus a form, like all different standards would apply. But you can also pick your tech stacks. And again, this is just some initial information. But if I was going to say it was a front-end application stack, I can go in and actually shop around for what I think the technology is going to be. So I can actually say, oh, this is a Vue.js application. And then I can go off and create that project. So it'll create this project, and now I'm in. I've got a project created. I have my access tokens. I can manage that. I talked about the ability to create these access tokens so you can share and collaborate with other people. Pronghorn is a real-time app, so almost every, I think almost every feature is, it's like Google Docs, where if there's other people in there working with it, the fields update in real time. So it's all fully synchronized together. So if you are collaborating with other people and they add artifacts or upload files, you see it all evolving in real time. And you can create those tokens. And then we can go in and pick your model. So right now, just in this demo site, we've got Gemini, Claude, and Grok plugged in. Bring in whatever you want, OpenAI, Mistral, Cohere. It doesn't matter. It's all being handled on the back end, so you can bring your models. But what I will say is different models are good at different things. So some of them are really good for unpacking a business idea, and some of them are really good at coding, and some of them are horrible at coding. So you have to start to learn that. So you can set that for your project. So I'm just going to set, what am I going to say? Maybe Sonnet. We'll say Claude Sonnet. And you can set that up. And then you have your entire project all the way from the artifacts. That's your intake. That's your transcripts. It's your business requirements coming down the left. You've got chat built into here. So we'll go piece by piece. I'm going to come in and let me go into chat. I'm going to create a new chat, and I have an idea of what I want. So just like going to ChatGPT, I'm going to say Alberta seeks to use AI to process video content to help with business analysis. We want to create a service that will allow us to load video content and use Google image processing to extract frames. We want to store the metadata in a database. We want to use Node as our backend and host it in the Azure cloud. The image content might contain production information, so we would want to use Vertex AI Canadian hosted models with Google Cloud Platform. And right away, I can just come in and start to say, what are 10 questions that I should ask about this application? So immediately, just like ChatGPT, just like Copilot, just like all these things that we're using, you can start to come in and interact and engage with it, right? So right off the bat, it's everything that we've all been conditioned over the last 3+ years to do. Now, what's helpful about it is your entire team can be in this chat as well. So Sean, you could come in and create your own chat and start working on a different piece of this in real time. I could just pop over into your chat. You could pop over into my chat. We can collaborate in real time on the same one. So we're all actually working in the same space now. We're not copying and pasting out. And so I can work through this and evolve it. And one thing that I might do is I might say, fill in the gaps, but what are the major epics for this product from an agile perspective? So I can actually start to work out some of the pieces. So it's going to come up with some epics. So one, multi-cloud infrastructure setup. I did say Azure and GCP, so it caught that. Video upload and storage, right? So how are we going to do that? Video processing pipeline, Vertex AI integration, database design and optimization, and then API business layer logic. So those are the 7. Security and compliance. Let's come up with these different epics here: cost management, optimization, monitoring and observability. So these might be the major epics. And when I'm satisfied with that, let's just say I like where this is going, I can actually save any piece of this chat into the AI, and now the chat agent knows it, the architect agent knows it, everyone's working off the same page. So it's come up with 12 epics, and then it says, well, maybe here's the 5 that we should focus on, and then phase 2, there's some more epics. I can save that as an artifact. And now this lives inside the project where we have that entire piece of the chat that I'm getting from AI. It's now available living in the project. I can pivot really quickly into requirements and have AI build out a full set of requirements off of those epics. So I'm going to go and pick that artifact. And I'm going to say, build out my epics. And AI is going to decompose it. So it's actually going to take the entire project plan, build out the epics, the features, the user stories, and the test and acceptance criteria down to the lowest level. So we'll sit and let it process there for a second. And that didn't take long. So now we've got these, I'll collapse them here so you can see, we only caught one for some reason. But we'll break it down into the features, break it down into the user stories, and we'll break it down into the acceptance criteria. And if we wanted to add another epic here, I'll just do it manually in the interest of demo. I'll add one here called video image processing pipeline. I can also use AI to expand that. So I just hit the little magic twinkle button, and AI is going to go off and start to build out those and expand those all the way down. So start by building those requirements. I'll make this one basically, how about AI OCR extraction, full Gemini. Like that. I'll save on that piece, and then I'll add that one as well. And so here, it's built out the image processing pipeline and the features down below, and I can take any one of these features and expand it further and continue to build out the various elements of the project. And this is just going to be a quick whistle-stop tour of some of the pieces. So right away, I'm taking a concept, I build it out with chat, I build it out into business requirements, I've got artifacts, I haven't left the tool, right? There's no copying and pasting here really going on. It's all living inside the same first third of the factory. I'll get to this quick demo here, where now that I have some requirements, so I have loaded in 3 epics. Now that I have some artifacts in terms of what I'm attempting to achieve, I can actually start to get agents building this out for us in this factory. So if we look at this canvas tool, we can go through and actually build out and drag out all the elements that it would take to define a project. So you could have a project mapping to requirements. You could have requirements mapping to pages. So we can connect a requirement to a page inside your app. And then we can continue to have pages mapped to web components. So think of this as your logical architecture of how an application gets built. And we use a number of different tools today to design applications, but they're all just pictures. The difference here is that these are actual blocks that the AI can understand, and they can actually take a block off the canvas and code it and then put it back into the project. So if I drag out an API service, for example, and connect a hook to an API, I can connect an API to a database, and down we go, right? This is essentially the logical way we build applications. Well, by doing it in this environment, you're sharing this canvas with AI. You're also sharing it with your whole team. So very quickly, you start collaborating with people. I'm going to erase all this stuff here. And we can also have AI transform our requirements using a whole team of agents. So I can pick our requirements. I can pick our that artifact there that I had at the beginning. I can add those. I can say, and then I can actually have a team of agents starting to work collaboratively together. So I can come down and I can either drag different agents onto the canvas like an architect. I have to refresh that piece of it. Or I can come in and I can actually have pre-configured teams. So I can have an architect working with a dev. I can have an architect working with a dev, working with a DBA, working with a QA and a cybersecurity agent. And because they're all connected together, they go round robin and they pass each other the task as they go. So that the solution architect says, well, I think this is what he's trying to build. And then it passes it to the developer, and the developer says, well, these are the components I would build for that. And it passes it to the DBA and says, well, this is the database you're probably going to need to make all this stuff run. And they're all looking at that canvas we were just seeing, and they're all collaborating with each other in real time. And it's a little slow to run, especially with a reasonably powerful model like Claude Sonnet. But I'm going to just hit go because I think it'll be worth the trip. So I'm going to actually hit start iteration. And just to give you a sense of it, they'll take about 30 seconds per iteration. They'll sit and run through all of your requirements, adding pieces to the architecture, figuring it out, talking with each other, and you can see every single thing that they're saying to each other. You can see all the thoughts that they're having around how to build this application out. So let's look at the architects. The architect says, I'm starting with a blank canvas for a multi-cloud AI video processing platform. I'm going to establish the foundational architecture. There's three major epics represented: infrastructure, video, and OCR. We've got some different Azure GCP pieces. I'm going to go and start adding nodes onto the canvas. I'm just going to start drawing. I'm just like an architect would in Visio. So that's the first step. And then the next one to execute, which you'll see here pop up in a second, is the developer. So the developer is going to look at what the architect does and say, okay, that's cool. I think I could add to that. And it's going to come up with the next list. Again, it takes about 30 seconds for each of them to go and execute their piece. But what you'll find that because you've orchestrated all these together and they have a shared memory, they will sit and work for an hour, refining and tuning and challenging each other. And when you come back, you have an end-to-end architecture of every page, component, database, schema, table, all worked out as a starting point for you to start to work with the application.
Why 10 iterations?
Why not? So what you'll see is that there's actually a fall off what happens. So if you give them 10 iterations, we see that the first architect made 12 nodes. The second architect, the developer filled in 29 more nodes and connected 8 of those first 12 into its own nodes. It's actually starting to wire this thing together in the next one. If you look at the heat map, there's a heat map that identifies it. You'll actually see that there is a fall off that happens after about 10 iterations, where they will start to run out of things to think about. There's just nothing more that they can come up with to fill in the canvas. So it's kind of like a burn down chart from the agile days where you're pulling tickets off of that thing and you're executing them. You're trying to burn it down until there's nothing left to do.
Just GPUs to be melted.
Well, I think I'm probably melting some GPUs. My cloud team will tell me how much money this is costing on a daily basis, but you'll actually see it going through. So, the first iteration, we created 49 nodes and edges. The second one, we're at 50, right? So we'll kind of go up. And if we let this run to iteration 5 or 6, you'll get down to 6 and then 5 and then 2, and eventually they'll just start coming with zeros. We couldn't think of anything else to add. Now, while it's working, I will show you that you have the ability to actually click that edit button and rewrite any one of these agents to work the way you want it to work. So if that architect wasn't picking up the requirements well enough, if that dev wasn't being as granular in having the a microservices architecture approach, if that DBA wasn't being as illustrative to go down to the schema and table and field level that you were looking for, just change the prompt and run it again, and it will go through and iterate. Now, the benefit of that is you do have a lot of control. The downside is you have a lot of control. And so when you're going through that, it will, this is where owning the factory, every single thing on the factory can be tuned and can be broken. It can be repaired and replaced and swapped out. And so it's great, it's powerful, but it also means that with great power comes great ability to mess things up at speed. So if you don't like the way the architect is architecting, you can rewrite it. And this is where, when we talk about those 10 teams, I would ask that the architects who know how to architect a good app come in and start to build out the best architect agent that they can, which is going to work the way that they know is to be the best way to work here. So it's on to iteration 3. We'll see. I'll let it go for one more iteration because we should get some fall off starting to happen. Right now, it hasn't really fallen off. There's still quite a lot of change and fluidity. If I go back to the chart, I probably will see that it's producing less nodes now. So 29, 0, 0, 7, 8. But what it's really doing is it's filling in the connections between those pieces. So it's drawing the what you saw me do, it's doing that itself, and now it's starting to do the connections and to fill in some of those details.
So
Maybe let it go one more. Hopefully we'll see some fall off at level 3. But yeah, run it for 20 iterations or 10 or 5 until you figure out how many is needed. So I'll let it fill in this last block, and then we'll switch back to the canvas and see what kind of mess we have with AI at the steering wheel. And like I said, this is sort of out of the box standard prompts. You can fine tune this to any degree that you like. And therein comes the care and feeding of your application. So we're getting a little bit of fall off. So we're down to 22 changes. So it is falling off like a proper burn down chart, which is why we have the heat map. I'm going to pause it at this point, so I'm just going to pull the plug on it, and iteration stopped. I'll step out of here and just refresh my canvas really quickly. And oh no, what a mess it drew. But luckily there's a button for that. So you click the auto order button, and what you end up with is basically there's a little bit of cleansing and overlap that you might want to consider here. But let's start to have a look at it. So here it's created our app. Our app has these different epics that it's brought in. Epics have these different features. These features are mapping to different pages. Pressed it there by accident. Features are mapping to different pages. So we have a video upload page, a data processing page, an OCR page, a results viewer page. So it's built out different pages based on the epics we gave it. It has forms now, a video upload form. Right? So a page would have a form. That would be a subcomponent. That's how we would develop it. That would use a hook or a composable. That's the thing that's going to call the API, right? That's the logic, the business transaction. That's calling this video upload API. So the hook calls the API. The API is going to call the controller, right? So there's a router. So when a backend service gets a front end request, it goes through a router. Router calls a controller. Controller is going to be calling your different services. It's going to be, I cut it short, so there's some links missing, but the service calls the database. Database has tables or sort of schemas. I think that's the schema there, and then it goes down to these tables. So video outputs, thumbnail, OCR extractions. So what it's built is really a lot of the fundamental pieces that are going to go into building that app. Did it get it right? Did it get it wrong? Well, then we'll sit down and clarify it. Some of the things you can start to do is you can start to drag these into zones. So if I wanted to have a data zone, I can put all this stuff into a data zone. Now they're all linked together, and the AI understands that they actually have a relationship together. And I can drag some of these zones on. So truly an architect's tool, but a shared canvas between you and the AI at this point, and able to basically chunk these different elements out all together. I'll just jump ahead, and we'll really stress test this demo to see if we can truly break it live. But I'm going to add a quick repository called quick demo repo. I'm going to add that repository. And I'm actually going to say, I'm actually going to switch to our coding agent that we talked about. And now we're into our coding agent. I think we're live. Yeah, we're in our coding agent. And I can give it access to anything in the project. I can give it access to the artifact that we created, the chat, the canvas, everything, requirements set. So I'm just going to give it the canvas. I'll come in here. I'll attach my canvas. So we have 63 different nodes and 82 different edges. So I'll attach those together. It has 145 different artifact pieces that it has as a starting point, and I can immediately start going into the dev space now and saying, hey, based on what you see in the canvas, map out this application. So I'll actually say, build me a plan.md of implementing this Vue Node.js app. And so I'm talking to the coding agent. There's a few things I can do. I'm finally in control of how much history we give it. So this is a black box as well. If you've used these tools, you don't actually know when the history cuts off. So now you can control that. You can see exactly how much detail you want. So you can see every single thing it's thinking and saying. You can look at the raw logs. So this is the down to the every single action that AI is going to take is going to come out into the logs. And you can tune and tailor every single part of this agent. So this agent has an identity. Who are you? You're the coding agent for Project Pronghorn. What are your tools? Here's a tool list, which we see in the tool manifest. There are critical rules, right? These are the things that you must do as an AI agent. These are the instructions, right? This is the way we code that in English language here. Operational batching, memory, the Blackboard, response format, like all of this stuff you have control about. It works relatively well out of the box, but you can tune and tailor. And then in terms of its configuration, you can either give the whole project to it, so it actually can read that. So if you check the box, you're giving it access to everything. Or you can just give it access to what I picked. And then you can tell it the maximum number of iterations. So you can literally say, I'm going to give you a really complex task. Go build these 500 files. I'll give you a budget of 100 iterations. Go. And it will sit and churn away. You can make it 5, you can make it 500. But it'll churn away through the task and work through that as well. So I'm going to see, we'll see how much context I can shove into this thing before it breaks. And again, we just asked for a plan. So this is how I've learned to work with AI. Is I ask it to basically build a plan that it can work against in the future. So I'm taking 145 different pieces. And we can look at what it's doing. So first of all, it says that hey, the user wants me to create a plan file based on the canvas. So it's reading our architecture. What's the canvas have? Video encoding, thumbnail generation, API, GCP, data residency requirements, multi-cloud. So in order to do this, I'm going to explore the structure. It's going to say, oh, there's no files here. It's essentially a blank state. Let me see that. Let me read the README. Okay, the README is done. Okay, I now understand this project. I'm going to build this overview. And so now it's going to be building out the different pieces. And now it's actually working on building that plan.md file. So you can see it's churning away. I asked it to do sort of a large, beefy task to begin, which is to read this whole thing and build a plan file. I could have asked it to do some smaller, lightweight stuff, but we'll see how it gets to in this space. Yeah, we'll let it pop out that first file here in terms of doing that. And then what I would do is I would sort of decouple the canvas at that point. So when the canvas has come in to build a plan, you decouple it, and now it has plan.md, which is the markdown file. It can sit there and read that file, produce the files, the folders, the content there. So we'll let it churn there for a second to get this project off to a good basis. And then you can literally say, if let's say the plan has 500 different files in it, you can say, okay, build a plan, do 5 files at a time, 100 iterations, and then it will carry on. So it's read the canvas, it's built out our entire plan of front end, back end, infrastructure. It's looked at the canvas and understood the tech stack, so Vue.js, Node.js, Google Cloud, authentication system. So it's built out that, and now it's built out a conceptual back-end structure for the application. So now I'll just say, I'll decouple that, and I'll say, build out the back-end files and folders with placeholder code, doing just for the purpose of the demo, 5 files until you've built out the whole backend. Use the plan.md file for basis. Okay. And it'll read the file again. It'll read what's in there, and it'll start to build out the entire project here. So it's working through its iterations. Iteration 1 reads the file. Iteration 2, it's going to make 5 files at a time until it's really chewed through the entire task. Like I said, it's completely transparent about what it's doing. I'll show you just as it's finished. I'll pause it after it's built some files here. I'll show you the audit in the background. This is the transparency that I'm talking about. Every single tool call, every single thought it had, every single bug it fixed, every single issue it ran into, it all gets logged. So you can come in and do a mass audit at the end of it and say, when did your tools fail? When did your agents cease to produce the quality that you're looking for, et cetera? So I'll just let it produce the first 5 files here and then show you that, and then we'll shift gears onto some other cool stuff. But yeah. So if you've used agentic tools, this is really a platform to make whatever agent you think you like. You can download them, you can upload them, you can share them between different projects as well. So as you start to build those out, it's really the ball is in your court in terms of how capable they are. So it's churning away, it's making the files in the back end, it's working away. So it's done the first 5 files. I'll just stop it here just in the interest of time because it will literally kind of go on and run for a long time. I'll look at the history here. So you can see all of the every iteration, every interaction. So this is the very first interaction we had is captured. Every iteration through there, you can see everything that you've put into it, everything that comes out of it. And so again, imagine being able to audit this. By the time you're done the project, there's going to be 1,000 of these different things. You can unleash whatever audit you want and say, how good did it do? What did we create? Were there any gaps, et cetera? So you can challenge what it's doing every single step of the way. And then if you find it's failing, go rewrite the agent. Just hit save changes and you are good to go. It actually saves it into your project. So you can, it's all retained in your project. Hit save changes and then iterate again until you have essentially the perfect setup that you're happy with. I'll challenge the demons of live demo one more time. I skipped over this, but you can do single-click database deployment. So I can create a first database, open it up for testing, and database will be created in the next 30 seconds. I can do the same thing with my deployments. So I can pick my project. I can create a cloud deployment. I can say that this is going to be a Vue Node.js monorepo application. I can set my environment variables. I can provision disk space. And again, I click it, 30 seconds later, it's up and running and deployed. It's all synced with GitHub. So as you push and synchronize changes to the code, it gets live time rebuilds. You can do local deployments. So you can actually set your local configuration. I'm going to do a local deployment for a Vue Node.js app. You can set your environment variables as well. Hit create deployment, and it gives you a full package file you can just download and run, and it will boot up this application and run it locally on your PC, and it will have real-time bidirectional logging happening. So if there's a bug happening on your local instance, it goes to the cloud, vice versa. And then some of the experimental features, there's this audit. So you take your requirements against code, it will find you all of the gaps between those two, and you just pick literally requirement set, code set, let it go. And then finally, we'll see if I can really break this thing and ask for a nice little presentation on what this app is trying to do. And there's an agent, a presentation agent, just like the other ones you've seen, that's reading your settings, it's reading your requirements, it's reading your canvas, it's reading your artifacts, it's reading everything out through the project. It's read it all and internalized it. And it's building you a PowerPoint presentation of exactly what your code is trying to do. So it's basically going slide by slide. It's going to build out everything that you've got here. So take about, I probably picked too many slides, but basically you wanted to communicate what this project is doing, click, and it builds up the PowerPoint presentation for you as well. So you can use it to storytell. And then the last thing I'll highlight, I'll just break that happening in the background. You can actually, there's 13 more agents here, whether you want an overview, a technical spec, executive summary, a project briefing, a cyber audit, solution architecture analysis. You can pick solution architect. You can pick your canvas, right? I'll pick my canvas here that we built together. Pick that, and I'll say, I want the solution architect to do an analysis of this. I could give it a custom instruction of specifically what I'm looking for, but that solution architect is going to go and basically build out exactly what we're talking about here. It's going to read everything in the project. These are version controlled, so as the project evolves, you can get the latest cyber briefing, you can get the latest solution architecture, and you can download, then you click this button, you can download everything. It's fully takeaway. We almost call the app takeaway, in the sense that you can just, we're so frustrated with the inability to take away your chat history, much less what the agent's doing, much less the audit and the logs. But you click zip file with subfolders and you just walked away with the entire structure of it. So you can feed that into AI and audit it to your own process there as well.
Can you take your takeout into a container?
You can.
I see.
So anyway, the solution architect is just reading the canvas here and it's building out the entire solution architecture piece. It's still going. Just hit 10,000 characters, so it'll go for a little while. But for example, if I wanted to go into my chat mode and say, hey, the solution architect pointed out a bunch of deficiencies, help me work through them. This is available in chat. So you see that everything ties to everything. It's all one ecosystem. And if a new requirement comes in, Epic 4 comes in and it's missing off of my canvas, I can pick Epic 4, have AI generate the canvas. It won't interrupt whatever else is on there. It'll just augment and add to it. So these are all, it's all because the whole ecosystem's talking together. I think that brings us to the end of most of Pronghorn as a demo, without really even scratching the surface of it. I will go back to this site and go to GitHub for a second. And so there's 7 public repositories. There's Pronghorn, there's the documentation, there's the runner app, which is the same as the local deployment. And then there's templates. So we're starting to fill in the view node template, just the view front end template. And so you have a whole range of different templates. So you can pick this view node template and you can either deploy it locally and start working in it, or you can actually just clone it right into your Pronghorn project. It has a front end, a back end, user control, AI built into it, Postgres support built into it, and you can single click deploy it into Pronghorn, and Pronghorn will just start building out an app right from this view node template. So you can go in and play with those. They're live for you to download right now if you wanted to get them up and running. And you just set your environment variables, and it should be good to rock and roll. So good for you and good for the AI. So I will. I think that brings us to the end of the demo part. Let's go back to what we had on the agenda. I think we were going to switch into a Q&A for the last 20 minutes. And I haven't been looking at the chat because I've been talking so much. So let's switch into Q&A here. On that. So maybe I'll spend just 1 minute here. Future roadmap. There is so much to build in this space. There's so many better ways to enhance this. There's so many tools that we can bring to bear in this. That as we start to get into it, we're going to come up with more tools, more connections, better agents, better better capabilities. So this is really just the beginning for us, but it is a way of working that even though the technology will change and evolve, again, I'll go back to the fundamentals. People working more collaboratively with each other, AI is being the glue that connects various elements to that, the ability to immediately transform from a transcript to requirements, to a canvas, to code, to an audit, to a presentation, without ever leaving an ecosystem and having all those agents working collaboratively in that space. Like that's where we're going. That's where this whole thing is going in 2026. So if anything, the tooling is going to come through testing and testing and testing and refining the agents. Some people are going to be really, really good at writing agents. And in fact, AI is pretty darn good at writing itself as an agent. So one of the things that you can do, and I'll show you the tool here. So this is one of the tools that we use. It's also open source, MIT licensed, and live for you to use, which is Agent Builder Console. You can go in and start to experiment and learn how to build a rock solid autonomous agent using this tool. You can bring in your prompt, you can pick your model, and there's I think there's 30, 40 tools on this canvas already, and your free agent can call any of them. You can equip it with whatever you want, and you can actually let it self-author. And so you can, if you want to know how to write a good agent, you can actually say, rewrite yourself as a senior solution architect. And I'll just hit start agent on that. And it will actually read its own agent instruction and come up with how would it rewrite itself as an agent architect. You can see all of the tools it's calling in real time. So it's actually reading its own instructions right now. Now it's rewriting its own instructions. And you can see the tools it's calling to do that. You can read its raw output, and then you can actually look at, if I go to the prompt, I can actually see what it's modified, and it's modified 11 of its own prompts already to be a better agent than the agent it starts with. So you can take that agent, drop it into Pronghorn, and say, okay, try that. How's that going? Is that doing a better job at building my canvas, building my architecture? And so it rewrote itself in 28 seconds, coming up with a better agent. And now you can test it, iterate it, refine it, try it again. So this is kind of the mode of what we're working in, is seeing that we've got these agents, we've got these tools, we have memory, which is on the screen here. We've got artifacts that it produces, and it has this piece. So if you wanted to know, like, what does it mean to be exploring AI in 2026? It's a lot like this. These are just the beginning of how we're going to be able to come and build that. But if I can build an autonomous agent here on this canvas, that I can test it and I can refine it and get it to a high degree of quality outcome, then I can take it and deploy it into a production environment once I have the testing and I have my receipts there that it's working well. So check that out as well on the Agent Builder console under Free Agent, and there's a lot of capability here. You can generate images, generate audio, create Word docs, do API calls, do database integration, and very quickly I can say, check the weather in Edmonton and create an audio news and weather forecast for me. And it'll just go through and it'll know which tools to call. It'll go generate speech, text to speech. It'll do a weather call. It'll do a news call. And so you can come in and actually start to learn how these things work. So that's where this is headed. The tools like this, tools like Pronghorn. So I'll stop there.